but you've been quite busy. I mean, we're on and off talking a little bit behind the scenes for the last couple of weeks. We got a lot going on, so why don't you go ahead and tell us what you're up to?
Yeah, this it's been a busy year. I mean, we're obviously 19 years into our journey, but I'd say this is our biggest yet. Managing a bigger team, and then also announcing our second US tour. So we've got 13 markets in play across the US, and yeah, just trying to manage life around that. But all fun stuff. Working with lots of amazing, talented artists around the country. Um, no complaints.
19 years. That's a long time, my friend. How much has the Secret Walls changed?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I can talk about that for a long time, but I mean, even the name, right? So back then in London when I started it, it was meant to be a one-off event. I was just looking for something to do. I came out of university, inspired by graffiti, and I'm not a graffiti artist myself, but I met these amazing guys, saw a b-boy battle, saw the energy in the room, and the kind of spinning on the decks. I saw the graffiti in the shadows, and this was before the Banksy explosion. Banksy was still selling work for £100 a print, but I could see something there. So the original idea was I'm a big soccer guy, rocking my soccer shirt today. Always into the competition, Fight Club, Warriors, all those old movies, comic books. It was all blending kind of, I suppose, blended in my head and kind of created this live art competition that we call a paint battle. Meant to be a one-off. Kind of, it was called Secret Wars originally because of the original comic name, the Marvel comic in the 80s that didn't do so well, but I thought it was a great concept. So I kind of just took the name because I didn't really think about this being a business. So I didn't really worry about stuff like that. And we packed out the room, people crowded all the way down the streets in Shoreditch, East London, and did another one, sold out again, and it just kept going. And it turned into a tournament that then turned into a European tour that then all of a sudden started making some money for the artists and myself, and then got me on the plane to America every month. And I suppose fast forward, 19 years, I've been out here now in the States for 12, and it's just go, go, go. The artist community constantly remind me how important this is for the scene. It's not just a party anymore. Probably back then it was just meant to be fun, but now it's kind of part of the, bedrock of the community, and artists talk about it as a place to go network and a safe, diverse space to be inspired and make new friends, find new projects, and make some money as well.
I like where you said that early days you thought it was going to be one and done, which almost like really nothing to lose in that aspect, and then it's keep growing and growing and growing. But I'm sure the early days were almost like, no, we're gonna ride this for as long as we can. At what point did you realize that, listen, we're gonna be here for a while? This needs to become something else. It needs to transform to a proper business, or if you have more of a strategy. How soon into the process that switch came to you?
Yeah, probably end of year one. I mean, the first year of doing the tournament in London, I could see there was something magical there. I knew I had something special. I'm still trying to figure it out. Still working two part-time jobs, retail, trying to survive and pay my rent in London as a graduate, kind of struggling with the bills. But I we got a phone call from Reebok, a brand that I love, and I wear Reebok shoes pretty much every day. I'm rocking Reeboks now, unsponsored, but they called me up and said, "Do you want to come out to Barcelona and build a tournament inside a big fashion show?" There used to be this thing called Bread and Butter, which was a huge fashion convention. I don't think it exists anymore, but 300,000 people would go to Barcelona, all the brands, and they'd get together, and there'd be this big trade convention. So we went out there, uh, performed 7 days in a row on the Reebok stand, which was a beautiful setup. At the time, Pharrell Williams was dropping the ice cream shoe, which obviously was huge, and that was on the stand where we were performing. So that obviously helped. We got paid for the first time. They gave us a check. I kind of lost my mind because it was like, hang on, I can afford to take 10 people to Barcelona, stay in an Airbnb, make a few dollars, eat well, sit in the sun, and have fun. So I think it clicked then because we were like, there's something here again. There's value. Pharrell's crew turned up, gave us some, props for what we were doing. Thierry Henry, if you're into soccer, like he was just signed for Barcelona at the time and sponsored by Reebok. He showed up with his brother, and we started doodling on soccer shoes, football boots with him. And he was talking about comics, and we got loads of good content with Thierry, and he was, one of the best players at the time. So it was just a weird, crazy whirlwind of a week. And we got back, and I suppose the content off the back of that, and this is really early social media days, so, MySpace era. So it was still very much word of mouth and paper flyers and kind of hustling on the streets. But I think we had a blog spot, which I don't know if you remember the old blog spots, but
Yeah.
we put up all our content on the blog spot, and it just exploded, and it just was cool after cool, brand after brand. And from there, we were working with all the sneaker brands, all the lifestyle brands, traveling the country, and then all of a sudden on a European tour, sponsored as well. So yeah, I suppose I think it was like year 2, year 3, where it started to make a few dollars, and I could see a future in it. My parents obviously thought I was crazy because I'd just finished uni and got a degree in animation, so they thought I was going to be like a Pixar animator or something like that. And I suppose that's what I was dreaming too. But when I told them I was going to go start my own company and try and survive in London, one of the most expensive cities, and work in the world of graffiti, which they knew nothing about, they just thought I was, insane. So it took a few years to persuade them that this was an adventure worth pursuing.
That's amazing. Did you realize at that point, to make it a profit of such a business, you needed almost like a brand partnership? You needed like the Red Books of the world, those brands to really support you, so it couldn't make sense. And that became almost a goal, perhaps a priority for you to start seeking out and reaching out to those brands and perhaps working, collaborating with them.
Yeah, I think originally actually the I was making more money off the door on tickets and merchandise and also bar, like in London when we were selling out those shows before sponsorship. I was making enough money to kind of like survive and slowly kind of leave my part-time jobs. And then the sponsorship came, and that was just like bonus money. It was like, wow, okay, here's whatever the Reebok check was, £30,000, which was a lot of money back then. I was like, okay, that's cool. That just pours fuel on the fire. But we had a pretty sustainable model in the early days, just from the local event. And then I suppose I just learned how to then negotiate and slowly teach myself how to walk into these brand boardrooms and kind of get better, deals kind of year on year, project by project. But yeah, even to this day, like there's so many different ways that we can monetize for ourselves as a business. We're a profit making business, but also trying to get better deals for artists, which is what we've always done. Trying to give them bigger checks as well to come on stage with us. Yeah, in today's world, it's obviously infinite. There's so many opportunities now for artists, but back then it was definitely harder. And sponsorship was really hard back then as well, because a lot of brands didn't maybe want to put their name in the ring on this like edgy street art kind of graffiti world. It was still a little bit vandal, it was like a vandal sport. It was still very underground. Again, Banksy hadn't really exploded. It was just kind of maybe Banksy was starting to do his thing. And obviously once the Banksy effect happened, that also just opened the floodgates, I suppose, to brands and artists in our world, the smaller guys, to kind of come through and kind of follow that wave. So yeah, we I suppose the timing was good. Everything just kind of worked out. But yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yeah. What about LA? That was so appealing to you that you left London and ended up set up shop in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I had an office in London all the way to basically pandemic, and that was the one thing that we had to sacrifice during that crazy time. So we were officed out of London and the US. LA actually came about a few years into my American journey. When we started making kind of moves into the US, it started in New York, which obviously the advertising capital of the world with all the creative agencies. So those guys started to call us up first. Once we made some waves, we got a call from Mark Echo, who was like hip hop's first like billionaire from his streetwear days, and he's also a graffiti artist by it's kind of his story out of a garage in New Jersey. So he called us up, flew us out again, similar Reebok effect. It was our first gig in New York. He treated us well, put us up, gave us these black taxis everywhere, and we were like rolling around New York doing these like shows and interviews. Went to his personal office in Manhattan that was like a basketball court with his desk in the middle, and he's just like surrounded by cores and all of this like amazing artwork that he collected. Gave us lots of time, kind of saw him as a mentor straight away. He had a lot of advice for us. We put on this party for him, and then I think there was a lot of celebrity friends there, including some of Kanye's old crew. And that was during the kind of college dropout era when Kanye was probably the best version of Kanye. The college dropout also had a blog at the time, and they blogged about us as well, and that just kind of accelerated the growth for us in the USA. From that point onwards, it was kind of I was on a plane to New York every month for the first couple of years, trying to balance like personal life, living in London, but mainly making my dollars in the US at that point. And then I realized I needed to get the visa and just make the jump. So moved out to New York. Short story, after a year, too cold, too expensive, super stressed out. New York was a tough place to be. Great to work, but not to live, in my opinion. And then I just kind of started traveling the USA. I just wanted to see it. So I was on planes to Detroit, Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, just picking up projects and doing little battles here and there. And then ended up meeting the future wife in Miami Art Basel. So from that point, we decided we wanted to move to a sunnier part of town. So we up sticks and went to LA. And I've been here for a good 10 years now. So 9, 10 years.
That's funny. My wife and I also took a relationship to the next level after a trip to Miami or Basel. So there it
Oh,
is.
really? There you go.
People
It
go to
was
Paris, to Venice, all to the romantic place. Some of us just go to Miami or Basel.
we met through friends at an Art Basel show. I think it was Soho House, Miami Beach, or whatever. My friend was DJing. He was a friend in common. Introduced us, and Miami was obviously a big place for us anyway. It's a big market for us. But couldn't live there. Too humid again. I'm just this like really sensitive British guy, So I was like, where can we go that's sunny but not so humid? And just tried LA. And I suppose LA's been amazing for us. I didn't really know much about the city, but I knew enough. In my head, it was all just Hollywood, entertainment world. But once I got here, I was shown around by some of the artists like Tristan Eaton, some of the greats, Shepard Fairey. People kind of gave me the tour of the town. I stayed at Tristan's for a couple of weeks and started to learn the other sides to the city and the different neighborhoods and the arts districts and all that. And quite quickly, I understood there was a lot more here. And yeah, it's just been the best place for us because we call ourselves like a live art entertainment brand. So obviously this is the entertainment capital of the world. So we couldn't really be in a better place. London's awesome, but kind of happy with where we ended up. I obviously miss England as that's home, will always be home. But LA is just infinite. It's kind of so much here. And again, the art scene is just crazy. And again, big sports person with the World Cup and the Olympics coming to town. I can just see, endless opportunities with what's coming down, over the next few years, especially for some brand like us that kind of blurs the lines between arts and sports. We do that a lot. We always talk about how art used to be in the Olympics from 1912 to I think 42. You could win gold medals in the Olympics, making a sculpture or painting a canvas. So we joke about that, but kind of semi-seriously say that we want to bring it back. And that's started to manifest into something quite real. And Pharrell actually just said it as well, kind of told someone in Paris, and it just exploded as a comment on social. So I think that's helping this kind of wave that we're pushing into 26 and beyond.
So exciting times ahead, that's for sure. Now, you're someone who has been very much invested and involved in the creative community, at least in the graffiti world. If you are to explain or describe the difference between the community in London, New York, and LA, how would you describe it?
Um, yeah, London at the time, I can't comment on where it is now because I don't go back enough. I only go back once a year to see family, and I literally do. We don't really do any shows in London at the moment, which is, I want to change in the future and try and get back there. But when I was there, the scene in London was very small, very underground because it was the early stages. So in Shoreditch, it was a very different place back then. It wasn't as gentrified as it is now. But yeah, it was a small community. There wasn't enough opportunity for young artists and businesses like myself. So it was a tough place to be. Everyone was it was like dog eat dog, everyone was trying to scramble and get kind of that one opportunity that might exist in the scene. Um, Obviously the graffiti, the street art world, the art community there is huge, massive, but I just don't know. Back then, the business opportunities just didn't kind of make sense. I'm sure that's changed now. New York, obviously, huge, huge art scene, amazing scene, some great artists and great friends. I know there, again, some big brands, big businesses that we collaborated over the years. Love New York. Um, I just, yeah, just think because I've done 10 years in London, going to New York felt very similar. They were very similar cities, in my opinion, like 24 hours nonstop. As a single person, it's great. You're out partying every day and kind of drinking and just trying to socialize and be at every gallery show. And, you end up just burning the candle at both ends. So it was awesome while it lasted. But I think Los Angeles for me is the winner. Maybe I'm biased because I'm in a different world now. I'm a dad and married and, I've got like a stable business. But yeah, it's just the sunshine, the community feels huge, the city is endless. Again, it feels like 10 cities inside one city. It's very different as you travel between the different areas. Um, and there's so much, so much going on, so much again, kind of still building here. And even outside of Los Angeles, with the smaller cities outside of that, there's just so much to do in California. So yeah, um, probably biased, but LA for sure is by far my favorite place right now.
All right. So the interesting thing, and I want to ask you, how are you going through to select the artists? What's the process to find out who's going to battle who? Is it availability? Is demand? Or what is the secret there?
Yeah, originally, obviously it was a small community, so it was easy kind of just running around London, finding the best 20 artists. But these days, because we have an open call out on our website, anyone can apply at any time. That stacks a database that we have on Airtable, I think it is now. So I've got like this smart database that continues to grow, and I'm just going back to it, just back to the world to kind of search out who I might be looking for. So people can enter their details on style, location. Uh, there's 5 or 6 questions there. Um, they leave their Instagram. So when I know that, say, we're going into Columbus, for example, I don't know too many artists personally in Columbus, know 4 or 5 in pretty much every city that I can always call on. But my strategy is always to find new talent. So I'll go straight to the database and search Columbus and see who's dropped in recently, and pull, the folks in that city forward, and then just literally manually go through the Instagrams and just get a feel for who they are and kind of read their application. They leave a note on why they want to be involved. So very manual, and it's only me and 2 others that do that right now. I wish there was maybe a faster way or smarter way of doing it, but right now it feels like the best way for us. We're only a small team, so um, yeah, I kind of value the curation of the lineups. It's really important I get that right, and that's kind of what I've built my career on, is bringing the right artists to the table, whether it's a battle or a commercial collaboration. It's kind of what I suppose I do best these days. So yeah.
Also, when you're preparing for a tour, how far in advance are you booking the venues, the cities, the artists? What's the process from beginning to end, and how often Do you plan to tours in every year?
Yeah, we do one tour every other year currently. It's a big operation. It's an expensive one as well. Takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of money, and a lot of brain power. So we are working. We've been working on this current tour for a good year, and we'll be out on the road for typically 3 months. We kind of leave our families and get out there like a band and just go do our thing. But yeah, it's picking the cities again. I know at this point, I know which cities are just direct hits, so I know which ones I can just walk into and fill a room, and I know where the communities are because I've been here long enough. But I'm always I'm designed in a way to take risks because that's kind of the street art world, and that's where I've come from. We're building this business with not a lot of dollars and not a lot of support. So building it backwards in a way. So yeah, risk taking is key. So we always pick a few cities that we're unfamiliar with. This one, it has like Phoenix on it, places we've never been before to battle. I've been there as a tourist, but I'm still learning the kind of city. So San Diego, Phoenix, Cincinnati is pretty new to us. And I kind of love putting myself in that kind of vulnerable situation where we don't know if 500 people are going to turn up. We don't know if we're going to sell all the tickets. I know I'll find the artist because that's at this point pretty easy. Once you put the social media kind of back call out, even if there's no one in the database, I can just say, social media stories, Phoenix artist, who's ready to go, and we'll get 20 applications pretty quickly. So yeah, we just hope for the best, and there's a lot of risk taking, but I think that's part of the energy of the tour. You just get out there, rock and roll, and make it happen. Small, scrappy crews, it's a tight production, but a fun one. It kind of definitely ages me, but I come back even more inspired for the following year. This whole Grey Beard, this was a 2022 tour, change of color.
So by the end of this 2024, you're going to be like full gray, coming up a little bit to the sides.
I'm already going salt and pepper, yeah.
And embrace it.
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's always a local artist still. It's always two local artists going head to head. And what are the criteria? It's pretty much the public. The public is the one who kind of, whoever shout the loudest for whatever artist is the one who takes the prize, I guess.
Yeah, it's a 3-point system. So two guest judges. So we're trying to find the best people in town. So it could be a curator of a museum. It could be a famous artist or, two respectable people that everyone locally knows. And then the crowd vote. So there's a 3-point system. It's pretty simple. Yeah, crowd scream for their favorite side, left and right. We have a decibel reader that's like a sound level, really simple. Everyone's half drunk by the end point. So it's a really, really like loud moment, a good way to finish the show. So, you can either win 2-1 or 3-0. There's no draw. So that makes it easy. But again, there is sometimes controversy in the judging. So that adds to the spectacle. But yeah, the rules are simple, 90 minutes, black and white, black paint on white walls, no white paint, no erasers, no sketches, no pencils.
The interesting thing when we talk about sports and games and competitions, when you look back, there's always one or two that kind of you remember, right? I remember first football match that you really treasure, and you go back like, oh, I remember what it feels like, what happened like was yesterday. Do you have a couple of those regarding for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And that's why, again, we've worked with so many sporting leagues now, basketball, baseball, soccer, kind of NFL. We've kind of collabed with pretty much all sports and the e-gaming world as well. So blurring those lines is really important, and I take a lot of inspiration from those different spaces as well. But yeah, definitely memories for me and for the crowd of the artists. It's always fun, sat in the pub, talking about some of the historic battles and people's favorite moments. And I forget a lot of this stuff because I've been to so many, and the artists remind me of certain moments where it's like we have a little laugh and a chuckle. But some of the things, probably the earlier days for me, stand out most because I remember the European tours used to be really raw. You know, it was a super low budget production, but we would go to like Sweden, Malmo, end up hosting like an illegal warehouse party, you know, on top of like a roof. I remember 2,000 people being on this roof, probably not safe, but somehow we pulled it off. Um, we had this huge wall built. Everyone was partying and having a great time. The alcohol was kind of like sponsored by the local like Swedish mafia that we had to negotiate with because everything in Malmo goes through certain circles. Um, and it was England versus Sweden, and England won that night because we were doing like national battles. So we were doing like this European Cup kind of competition. So the English went and actually won the Swedish crowd vote, which I think they won 2-1 because of the crowd vote. And it was just like magical seeing like a Swedish crowd vote for the English, and also going to like Scotland, where England and Scotland have this huge rivalry in all sports, and also England winning that. But then we got chased out of the bar by the crowd. I think we won the 2 judges on that night, and then the crowd were quite upset. So we got chased out of this Glasgow pub. That, you know, that happens, and that's part of this the you know, this like fun little world that we've kind of created. There was you know, there's been not physical artist fights on stage, but it gets heated, and I call it like a visual rap battle. You know, if someone asks me, if they don't know anything about this world, and they say, what do I do? What is a paint battle? The easiest thing to say is a visual rap battle. You've got 2 artists or 2 teams of artists going head to head for 90 minutes in a sporting kind of competitive environment, and they're slinging visual jokes, and you know, they're not just painting pretty pictures, they're actually painting kind of disses to the other side, and the smarter kind of strategies, and there's all kinds of strategies to it, but the smarter ones, or my favorite ones, are when the artists have researched the other side and their opponent, and you know, start to kind of take those guys to town visually. So, for example, London Police, who are my good friends, you know, legends in the space, they draw that very simple kind of circular character. Forget his name, I should know it. But it's just an easy one to replicate for people, and then to like kind of mash up or mix up. And I've seen people's characters go through like sausage mincers and, you know, all kinds of stuff that the crowd just go nuts for when they see it. And they, you know, if you get the timing right, like a rap battle, if you time the diss to say the last 5 minutes of the battle, you kind of, for me, sometimes it's a knockout punch. You can win a crowd vote in that last 5 minutes. And I always tell, I'm kind of a coach at this point, but I will always tell new artists coming into the kind of ring before a battle, I will try and remind them of some of the strategies that I feel works well, and try and coach them a little bit before they go out on stage, because you can paint a picture too fast and kind of lose the energy of the crowd or the votes, or you could drop your diss too quickly and then have nothing else to say for 60 minutes. So I've seen artists kind of crumble on stage as well. So it's definitely there's a lot of strategy and a lot of thinking that goes into this.
What happened to the canvas once it's all said and done?
We typically, back in the day, it used to be on actual physical walls. So the bar in Shoreditch would just keep it up for a month, and it would be an advert for the next one, and then we'd roll it, paint it white and go again. So it ended up being like 50 coats of paint over the year. These days it's canvas walls. So we build big 20-foot walls out of stretched canvas, and then afterwards roll it up, either keep it at the studio as an archive piece or try and sell it to a collector if there's an interested collector. We don't sell too much work because it wasn't really part of the plan, but these days it seems to be a request. There's a lot of, now the scene's changed, there's a lot more collectors out there. So I think selling the artwork in the future and trying to make the artist a few more dollars makes a lot of sense to us. So that's kind of a future kind of part of the business where we might set up a disruptive kind of gallery model that's very much in the artist's favor. I kind of like that. I think, maybe a physical space in our LA studio that people can come visit and dig through the crates and either buy a print or the actual original. Feels good to me. And if it's not that, we're donate to charity. We've done that a lot, given the artwork to local charities just to hang on their walls. Brands that we've worked with have bought it for their offices. And we've also sold work and given all the money to charity. We did a piece a few years ago during the pandemic. I think we sold 3 pieces for about $70,000. It was a collab we did with Bentley. We were doing this kind of like Bentley car commercial thing, which was crazy, but we got to produce our own kind of street art commercial around the Bentayga in our studios. And I persuaded the brand that the artwork should be donated or sold for charity. And we ended up giving all that money to Inner City Arts, which is a really cool organization out of Skid Row in Los Angeles that kind of get kids from like broken homes and like vulnerable neighborhoods and use the power of art to, help them dream bigger and put them in a happy space.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you create parameters for the artists in terms of, hey, listen, you cannot, there's certain symbolism or certain words that cannot be used, or it's just like whatever you feel like, you just go at it?
Yeah, no, there's definitely, in the old days, it was everything goes and just hope for the best, Yeah, and I've got in a bit of trouble for sure. There's been some family spaces with kids in the crowds where it's got a little bit, R-rated, I suppose. But luckily, we've never had anything really crazy or mad. But yeah, my rules are pretty simple usually, and just trust in the artist to just do their best and kind of read the room. But when we work with brands, there's usually a theme. So in an unsponsored battle, there is no theme. Kind of just go crazy. In a sponsored battle, there will be a theme of sorts, but it's always loose. It's not a commission, so we're not telling the artist what to paint, but it might be, we're battling at the All-Star game in America, which we've done a few times. So it's like, let's obviously be inspired by the world of soccer and just have fun with that. Bring your characters into it and just kind of come up with clever ways to tie the worlds together. Obviously, in that environment, it's family friendly. So I always, no guns, no swear words and all the rest of it. But I think most of the guys, I think everyone's professional. I haven't really come across an artist that's just blown the stage up and got us all in trouble. Luckily, touch wood, it's never happened yet.
What strategies have you found most effective in building and sustaining this community, especially in different cultures and contexts around the world?
I've kind of taught myself how to run a business. I definitely wasn't trained in even basic bookkeeping. All of that I've had to learn myself and quickly stabilize and make it make sense for the small team that we have. But these days, it's become a little bit easier because we've surrounded ourselves with some smart people. I have a mentor that's now my CEO, Kev Collins, who was a client, then became a friend, and now is on the team. So he drives sales. He looks after the kind of commercial side of things. I'm the kind of founder, authenticator of what we can do. It's always been this way, but even when I was on my own, it's kind of like, how far can we push it commercially without selling out or being accused of selling out by the community, and just getting that pulse check from the artist community on what makes sense and what doesn't. So that's kind of my job these days, is curating and just authenticating like the partnerships and the projects. But it seems to work well, and then obviously there's so many opportunities now for the brand and also for the artists on their own to make money, like from either selling art in the various different ways you can sell art to being paid to just get on stage with us, or the sponsorship or the content. It just keeps going. There's just like the workshops as well. Like we obviously pay the artists to come teach with us. It's the strategy there was never a blueprint. It's kind of, we reevaluate the business year on year. We're a team of 5 with a couple of advisors outside of that. and we just have to kind of ride the waves. And obviously, the last few years have been insane for everyone. Uh, Without going too deep on the past, it was, that was being an events company in a time where you can't open your doors for 2 years. Nearly killed our brand, which actually made us stronger, even though it nearly crushed us. It was like sat in a warehouse in LA, not being able to open the doors, paying rent on a space that is a venue for hire and a space to use as a party space, and not being able to travel and do any of the stuff that we usually do. Taught us to go more digital and also start collaborating with artists in the digital world, and that's what created all these digital battles. And so we've tried to evolve with the times and also with the situation, and that's something that we're continuing, to try and do. Year on year, we're trying to expand the kind of artist and battle universe to make it make sense, not just for street artists, but all artists, is the dream.
So looking ahead, what are the aspirations? I know you said the battle will continue to be the DNA of what you do, but what are the other things that your partners, you're looking at as a possibility to grow the business and also the visibility to artists who are participating and engaging with you?
Yeah. My 20 years in, getting old now, in my 40s, starting to reflect a lot on where we come from and what we represent. I'm doing a lot of, having a lot of conversations, which is why the tour is always good, because I get to travel and meet folks in person, and new and old, and just ask them what they want out of Secret Wolves for the next 10 years. But I think it's pretty clear to me so far, obviously the battle world continues. Our kind of brand commercial collaborations will continue, where it makes sense. But my passion is probably starting to veer towards education and the give back of what can we do to make a better world for not just the artist community, but for kids charities that use art as a tool. How can we go into schools when schools are cutting art budgets around the world? Art and sports are the first things to be chopped when budgets get tight. I know that's the case, obviously, in the UK and the US. So how can we fill a hole? So we're having a lot of conversations with school districts on how we can help come in and supply workshops and even our artists as teachers. So we're testing a lot of that. So I think Secret Wolves Academy for me is going to be a big area of growth and a focus for me personally, and I think the whole team obviously will rally around that, but I think that will become my personal kind of 10-year project. Outside of that, I've got some other ideas outside of the Secret Wolves space that kind of complement the arts community, especially locally in LA. I want to do a few things, a few side businesses potentially that will help kind of create this day-to-day environment at the studio. We're always keen to artists to come sit with us in the studio and kind of come drink a coffee, hang out with us. So trying to create more of a 24/7 vibe at the studio as well, again, outside of Battle Universe. So there's a lot to do there at the venue. I want to invest in the venue and kind of create one thing. You're the first to hear it, but we're trying to raise money to build a futsal multi-sports court out in our mural car park that's huge. So we have this huge car park that's surrounded by murals. I want to turn that into like a kind of a multi-sport car park situation. So when the car park is closed at 4 till 9, we're going to program all kinds of sporting activations that obviously are surrounded by arts. And that's something that I think is really important, because in my LA community, the kids there don't have a lot of spaces to run around. There's not a lot of green space. There's not a lot of parks. It's not like London and Europe where there's a lot of space there to run around in. You have to kind of drive somewhere to go for a hike. So we're just trying to create like a local kind of destination where people can come and just burn off some energy and be inspired again. And again, it's coming back to that art and sports kind of narrative. I think that's really a really fun one to keep riffing on.
Oh, no, that's quite interesting. If you were to create a lineup, like let's say there's a tournament of battles of all the best in the world, you can look into the past, at present. If you could pick anybody and everyone is available, what would be your top 5 or 4 people in case for this lineup?
Could it be artists that are no longer with us as well?
Sure, yeah. Anybody, if you get the chance, I have this tournament. It's an 8-man tournament or whatever it is, and we're gonna put those people out there and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking artists that I've never met, but greats that I respect and are inspired by when I see them in a museum, that I know would do really well in TV Walls would be Keith Haring, who's my favorite of all time. Like Keith Haring, the original freestyle kind of like scale that he went at. Haring versus Basquiat, probably. Imagine that. Two friends. Imagine those guys going at it for 90 minutes. It'd be insane. And I actually weirdly dream that like in 10, 15 years time, we've already got holograms, right? And AI, but where they're gonna start bringing these people back. Like Tupac performed at Coachella 5 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
So if that's ever possible, and I can talk to the Haring Foundation and the Basquiat Foundation to bring that battle back in a digital form and have this crazy kind of lineup, would be bonkers. But coming back to reality a little bit, in kind of the world of living artists, artists that maybe have never battled before, I'd love to get, as much. Obviously, Banksy and Shepard Fairey are two big names, but I've met Shepard, great guy. I don't think not every artist suits the battle. Those guys, their formats probably don't quite work for what we do. But I'm thinking, Hebrew Brantley. I've met him a few times, never worked with him, but absolute legend and he's blowing up. I'd love Hebrew on a lineup. We've had Ron English before, who I love. That guy is amazing. I'd love to get Ron back, but like a Ron English versus Hebrew Brantley fantasy world battle would be pretty bonkers as well. I want to do more solo battles again because we used to do a lot of those 20 years ago. These days it's lots of team battles, but I actually think there's something very different and magical with those solo battles. It makes it a lot harder for the artist, but also I think maybe more fun because they get a chance to really cover the whole canvas on their own and kind of work out the narrative. Whereas when you're in a team, you're obviously only 30% of what's happening, and you're hoping that it's all going to go to plan. But it's a kind of a different game, really.
Yeah. Terry, before I let you go, there's 3 questions that I ask everybody, and I want to hear your recommendations. So I need you to recommend us a book. It can be something that you read recently, one of your favorites, doesn't really matter. Recommend us something to watch, TV show, movie, documentary, and recommend us our next guest. Who should we invite to be here next?
Jeez, you put me on the spot. I don't read a lot of books, and the wife has, she's always nagging at me because I'm not a book guy. I try, I buy books, and then they sit on the shelf. But the one that always stands out, and I like to read kind of entrepreneurial business books or things that will inspire me to spark the next idea. But I think Tipping Point, which is obviously a popular classic, that one stands out. I've just bought, actually, I've got it on my desk, but I haven't read it yet, so I'm not going to pretend I have. Rick Rubin's The Creative Act. Rick Rubin, the producer. So I've just bought that. So I'm going to try and dive into that soon. TV. I binge on a lot of TV. Just finished The Shogun, which I really liked. Forget what network that's on, but it was
Shogun, FX, right?
FX, yeah. Shogun was pretty dope. I can't even think what the latest movie is I've watched, but yeah, Shogun was my latest binge. I think we just rented a movie called Thelma, which is actually quite funny. Not saying it's my favorite movie, but that was, I think, the most recent movie I watched, based on a true story, which is kind of hilarious. Best documentary. I'm a big soccer guy, and I've said it multiple times on this interview already. I've been binging on all the soccer docs, so Beckham, the Beckham doc. You know, if you're into football, go watch the the Beckham series. Like it's insane. You know, it's like his story and his come up
Yeah.
was really inspiring. You know, and then artist or person for the show, if you haven't already, Greg Mike. You know,
Mm.
Greg Mike is a good friend, but also an amazing serial entrepreneur slash street artist legend out of Atlanta. He's kind of like a brother from another mother. I love that guy. He's just opened his well, it opens next month. He's got this awesome church studio, converted church that's going to be opening up. So lots happening in his world. So I'd probably recommend diving into that because he's just got just a ton of stuff that I know he's planning, and we're also plotting as well together on some battles. So yeah.
That's excellent. Terry, thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And good luck with the tour. I know you're right in the middle, in the thick of it. So hopefully it's an incredible success. And we'd love to hear more about you and have you back, in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Then if for those that are close to any of the cities, check out, the website and try and join us on the last few stops. All the information's on secretwalls.world. But yeah, hopefully I can meet a few friendly faces that have listened to this and come out and say hi, drink a beer with us. But appreciate you bringing us on, and yeah, thanks again.
Cheers. All right, we're pretty done.
Sweet.